Hi folks, John Dunn here, RPG freelancer and publisher behind Meliorvia. I'm up here at Immortals Inc. today with Mikey.
What is up, John? It feels good to be here, and what's been up, man?
Oh, so much.
Yeah.
I thought we'd talk about a game tonight that really is about so much.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's about so much.
It's about everything.
Okay.
It's about the multiverse.
Okay, you caught me.
Yeah, see, I wanted to talk today about really what's one of my favorite game lines of all time, and that is Torg. And the current edition of Torg is Torg Eternity. This came out in 2018 after a 2017 Kickstarter, but the game goes back a bit further than that. The first edition was published by West End Games back in 1990, and it's probably the role-playing game that I have played the most out of any game ever. Ran lots of multi-year campaigns with Torg, and I've really enjoyed it a lot. Like I said, it was originally came out in 1990-ish from West End Games, and that edition has been around for a long time until West End basically went out of business, and then somebody bought them, and there was a revised and expanded edition, and that company again went out of business, and Markus Plotz of Ulysses Spiel in Germany was a big fan of the game and bought the property wholesale for himself.
That's a big fan.
So that Ulysses could then publish it. And they revamped it, like I said, did that Kickstarter in 2017 and came out with the book in 2018. The rest of the design team, along with Marcus, was Shane Hensley, Daryl Hayhurst, Dean Gilbert, and Ross Watson. The concept behind Torg is that Earth gets invaded.
That's not fun.
It doesn't get invaded by aliens from space. It gets invaded by other realities. And these aliens from other realities are coming here because Earth has so much potential. And not potential in, ways we could develop, but potential in ideas and concepts and energy and imagination potential, essentially.
I'm glad we're an inspiration.
We are. And because there is so many possibilities on Earth, these other cosms, which is the Torg world for other realities, come here to try and capture some of that to empower the High Lords that are behind each of these other realities. And there are 7 different High Lords that work together to invade the Earth, and each of them has their own flavor of reality. And what I kind of wanted to do was just talk about those different realities, because they revamped them a bit from previous editions when they did Torg Eternity, and that's one of the big changes that they made in the game. And also, like I said, the original one came out in 1990, so when they did this, they kind of had to update the timeline. One of the things that comes out in Torg is, what's your technology level? And our tech level's changed a bit since 1990.
Just a little bit.
So the game needed to reflect that, among other things. There were some other, issues that they fixed in terms of both rules and setting, and we're mostly just going to talk about the current version, though. I did mention there are High Lords, right? So each of these cosms that invade are generally representative of a genre, so a different style of fiction, and there's a High Lord behind them, and the High Lord is the person who controls that reality and decides what other worlds they're going to invade and how to spend the possibility energy that they gain control of. And that's used to fuel their darkness device, which is their basically evil tool that's kind of sapient and feeds them advice about how to continue this war. Eventually, one of those High Lords hopes to become the Torg, which is basically the ultimate bad guy, more or less, who controls everything. And that's kind of, they retrofitted that word to be the game name. And the good guys are Storm Knights, and those are people who can use that same possibility energy that I was talking about before in order to fight against the High Lords. And Storm Knights are generally, heroic people who want to help others and tend to take selfless actions, as opposed to the High Lords and their agents who are, all about personal profit. There's also a group that features prominently on Earth, which is called the Delphi Council, and that's kind of the war council that coordinates Storm Knight efforts to try and repel the invasion. I did mention there were a lot of different cosms, right? And those are realities. And in Torg, the Earth where this invasion is taking place is called Core Earth. That's the dominant reality that most people had been living in before this invasion happened. And it's not quite our Earth. It's a little more like an action movie version of our Earth. So people tend to be a little more heroic. There is a little bit of magic that sometimes happens. There are occasional divine miracles that happen. But for the most part, you'd recognize this place.
Skyrim with no dragons. Sure.
Well, no, more like, the Buffy the Vampire Slayer version of Earth. Right?
Okay, I see that.
Kind of, maybe not quite that extreme, but, magic sometimes happens. Miracles sometimes happens. Sometimes there is really a monster hiding in the woods.
Yeah, it's just legit. All legit stuff.
Exactly. Generally, though, feats of magic, miracles aren't the kind of things that you would see, in Skyrim, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're much more subdued. So that's our Earth. That's the Earth that we're trying to defend, right? The Storm Knights are trying to protect against the various invading cosms. The first cosm, and I'm just going to go through them alphabetically because that's the way the book presents them, is Isle. And Isle is a high fantasy realm where you have dwarves and elves and a lot of other archetypical fantasy races invading. And they are... The nice thing about when these realms invade is that they bring their reality with them. And so that reality overwrites parts of the Earth. So as they send their bridge over to connect their reality to Earth, they take over a portion of the planet and it is subsumed by that reality. So the people that live there are suddenly living in this high fantasy world, and they have access to magic that would be characteristic of that fantasy world. But at the same time, because it's a high fantasy world, their technology stops working.
That's broken. In a good way, but a crazy way.
And that's a big part of Torg, where you have these different realities in conflict, and a Storm Knight can tap into their native reality and use it to bring the different genres into conflict.
It's like crossing the street normally, and then you just are in, just medieval land or whatever.
Exactly.
Like, it's wild.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. And so where Isle is invading is basically the British Isles and then also Northern Europe. And the High Lord of Isle is a human by the name of Lord Uthorian, and he's got all these dark, evil creatures working with him, but then there's also forces of the light, and they're in constant conflict at the same time, and that's kind of Isle is this archetypical fantasy conflict between light and darkness. Invading France, you have the Cyber Papacy, led by the Pope Jean Malraux, the Cyberpunk.
Okay.
And the Cyber Papacy is this combination of cyberpunk and religion, where you've got an oppressive religion, much like you would have oppressive corporations in a typical cyberpunk setting. And then you've got revolutionary elements who are opposed to the religious persecution. You have some desperate witches, and you have a cyberpunk kind of net that's called the God Net. That invades, like I said, France and also Spain and Portugal. So Western Europe, really. Over in North America, invading Canada, the east and west coast of the U.S., and also Mexico, is the Living Land, led by Baruch Ka. The Living Land is kind of a prehistoric dinosaurs and cavemen and lizard people taking over. Very low technology, very low magic, very high spirituality, where the goddess has control of things and is very responsive, and divine intervention happens all the time.
Where do you hide?
Well, the neat thing about hiding there is because of the way the jungle has just appeared and there's this dense fog that covers everything, hiding is actually easy, and so is getting lost. You're trying to navigate through these seemingly endless jungles that have just sprouted up right in the middle of, urban areas.
It's always bittersweet. It's always bittersweet.
In North Africa, particularly centered on Egypt and a little bit of the Middle East, you have the Nile Empire, led by Pharaoh Mobius. This is a pulp action setting where you have pulp superheroes and also Egyptian mythology and some Egyptian magic going on there. So you might have Indiana Jones fighting a mummy.
That'd be an epic movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you've got all kinds of crazy weird science where people come up with these insane inventions that regular science wouldn't support, but because it's cool, the crazy ideas, suddenly it works.
Indiana Jones hasn't fought in a mummy yet, though?
Well, not in a movie.
Yeah, no, not yet.
Yeah.
To be determined.
Next up is Orosh, which is the realm of pretty much gothic horror, Victorian horror. The High Lord of Arosh is the Gaunt Man, and he's really the guy who coordinated all these different realms invading. In the old version, he invaded kind of the South Pacific-ish area. In this edition, he invades India and Pakistan and the surrounding nations. There's lots of monsters. People become corrupted. So while they might be upstanding members of Victorian society, as they interact with other people, they might have secrets and belong to cults and be summoning demons or turning into monsters behind the scenes. Lots of corruption and lots of kind of a real Cthulhu feel for some of that too.
Ooh, Cthulhu feel.
In the previous edition, there was a realm called Nippon Tech, which was centered on Japan and was really kind of stereotypical, often offensively stereotypical about Japan. Pan-Pacifica is how they re-envisioned that. And this is a high-tech, espionage-focused realm where, again, it plays some of those themes, but adds in a lot more of spy and corporate conspiracy and ninjas. Playing up those same themes. That's invading Japan and Korea and Eastern China. The last invading realm is Tharkold. Tharkold is kind of if you took Cyberpunk and Clive Barker and slammed the two together, where you have these high-tech, magic-wielding demons that also have all kinds of cybernetic implants and who are keeping humans oppressed and in line basically as a slave race.
I'll stay away from that area.
Yeah, it's nasty. You know, there's a lot of Clive Barker-ish imagery where, you know, people have spikes sticking out of their bodies and that kind of stuff. A lot of real body horror going on there. In the original version of Torg was a failed invasion. In this iteration, they succeeded in invading Russia. And to complicate matters further, as the invasion was taking place, Russia decided to try and nuke them, which created this massive nuclear fallout of reality confusion. So you've got basically radiation sickness powered techno demons spreading across large swaths of Russia.
That is just horrible.
And then they also have powerful magic as well because, hey, they're demons, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's only right.
There's a whole shelf full of source books, and in fact, there's a dedicated source book to each of those different cosms currently available, except for Pan-Pacifica. That one's coming out in a couple of months. There's adventures and additional support materials. This book is available. It's full color. It's 280 pages. It's about $50. It's published by Ulysses North America. The one other thing that you do need in order to play Torg, in addition to a rule book, is there's a deck of cards that does a lot of different things with the game mechanics. It's called the Drama Deck. That runs about $20 or $25. We do have both the core rules, the Drama Deck, and a whole lot of other support material here on the shelves at Immortals. Stop in, take a look. It might be a game that you could have a lot of fun with.
Well said, John. Till next time, people. See you guys next time.
Good gaming, folks.